Hello and welcome on another edition of the program Total Woman on AD4 TV Radio. My name is Mute Olori. Youth restiveness in Nigeria has been a prominent issue in recent times. There has been an increase in acts of violence and lawlessness, including issues like hostage taking of prominent citizens and expatriates, oil workers, as well as oil bunkering, arms insurgency, cultism, and so much more in Nigeria. Nevertheless, youth restiveness is not a recent phenomenon. Various forms of youth restiveness that are economical, political, or religiously motivated has existed for a long time. But the obvious effect of youth restiveness on the Nigerian society are loss of lives and properties, which constitutes a major threat to security of the state as well as its corporate existence, discouraging genuine economic and democratic development. So, what are the key things we need to understand, and how do we tackle this challenge? On today's episode of Total Woman, my guest is a lawyer, a Walter Carrington Fellow, a TEDx speaker. She's the executive director and author of the initiative Girls Just Want to Run, a book written to encourage young Nigerian women to be involved in leadership and politics. She sits on the board of Women in Leadership Advancements, WILA. My guest is no other person than Nafisa Atiku.
Good evening, ma'am.
Nice having you on our show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. I know you've been doing quite a lot, when it comes to encouraging young girls in the political space. Recently, in a chat with newsmen, you called on the Nigerian government to form a sustainable synergy
Yes.
with the private sector in order to solve the lingering issues of youth unrest in the country. What inspired that?
To be honest, I think it was inspired by taking me back a couple of months back, not up to a year. I was working in an organization that happened to deal with women who want to get funding for their businesses and basically putting them through the entrepreneurial boot camp. It brings to light some of the skills that the private sector looks for and they don't exactly see. Not essentially skills of reading and writing and numeracy, but other skills, such soft skills such as how I put it, trouble solving, being emotionally intelligent, other soft skills that are not necessarily being taught in the tertiary institutions. So what we see now, I think I was reading it I think yesterday or today, where it says that the Nigerian graduates can't read or write. And to be honest, that's a failure of the Ministry of Education, because the institutions are not equipping the students right now in the tertiary institutions well enough. If there is no synergy between the federal government in itself, that is the Ministry of Education, and the private sector stakeholders, which creates the companies that draw in these numerous men and women to understand that these are the skills and talents that we need for the 21st century. If your institutions cannot teach your graduates, your students, and we can absorb them into the workforce, we will not have to source for other talents elsewhere. And now we can see, as COVID-19 has happened, remote working has suddenly become a thing, and most companies are sourcing for talents outside Nigeria, probably in Africa or in the world. So if there is no synergy of that sort to harmonize what exactly it is that the need is, and feeding it into those young people so that they can find somewhere else to work, or even create business and industries of their own, where there is going to be a discrepancy somewhere.
Now, in advanced countries, I've seen projects like projects that are focused on mentorship, boot camps that are focused on mentorship. And I remember that you highlighted something, the lack of mentorship is in the political, economic, and leadership governance sectors in Nigeria is a major factor. What's the connection between mentorship and the youth restiveness that we have?
To be honest, I would say today that I am who I am or what I am is also a product of mentorship. I was able to understand certain things because there were other people to show me the way. It's like the concept of discipleship, having people to disciple, to bring them up in the way they're supposed to go. In the political, the economic, I don't think there is any notable person in this world that has achieved something that will say that they have done so without somebody else showing them the way. If you now suddenly break down that value chain, having someone there that shows the other young people the ropes, either politically, business-wise, or economically, in whatever sphere, you are living a generation that absolutely, you're living a generation with no roadmap, no guide. We make mistakes so that the other people can learn and see, oh, this is the mistakes this person has made, so I can be able to. That's why technology exists. People are able to do things a lot easier because someone has, already put the roadmap of how certain things should be done at this particular point in time. So mentorship is something that should be industry-wide, nationwide, however you want to put it. And that's why you have some companies like, let's say, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, they bring in interns straight from university right into the system. And then they somehow pair them with people in the company that can ensure that their progress is monitored. And then they eventually hire these people back in. They are doing that intentionally. That in itself is a sense of mentorship. That is how they get talents. That's how they get people to stay on their workforce and create a sense of productivity.
So mentorship is key.
Yes.
And I know that within the political sphere and governance, economic, women have done quite a lot.
Yes,
but do you think they've been able to create a mentorship structure for young girls coming up?
Nope. They have not. It's very, very evident. How many women do we see in office? In fact, let's bring it down to home. Whenever we have, because the initiative that I run deals with specifically young girls, and the first question they ask you, how do we get involved? How? I don't know how. That was a question I myself had when I wanted to get involved. Funny thing, I didn't have any female mentor. I couldn't find one. I just couldn't. So when it comes to creating a mentorship, it's definitely something that needs to happen. I was at a training hosted by Gen Z for young women who want to enter office. They brought the APC women leader because apparently it's part of a program that they are trying to create to foster mentorship. So they are trying to have an intergenerational sort of conversation.
Conversation, yeah.
Exactly, because there is a lack of that factor. There's a clear lack of mentorship between the older generation politicians.
And Nigerian women at the older generation, they've done quite a lot.
But you see that gap is still there and it clearly still exists. You see, one thing, because the women that have done a lot, they are not even that many. So it's like trying to squeeze out a scarce resource and make it as how will I put it, acceptable or admissible to a whole lot of young women that want to tap from that resource. So how do you even manage that? How do you manage? Okay, we have only like about. I was looking at the how will I put it, the data, the research, and we have only about between 67 and 69 women in elected offices nationwide, and you have hundreds of young women that want to get into office and they need some sort of mentorship from this woman. How do you divide those 69 women to those hundreds of young women that need that sort of guidance and need that sort of, mentorship?
But I've also heard that some of these women or the mentors are also very skeptical and reserved about, working with young people or trying to mentor them, because these mentees see such as an opportunity to either ask for financial support or make it they don't understand what it is to be a mentor. This is an accusation coming from the elder ones that these young people are not ready to learn. From your experience, do you think that is the case?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it's the case 100%, because in any sector in which you find yourself, they're always going to be the good ones. And they're always going to be the ones the bad ones that don't exactly know what you're looking for, or are just get to get some kind of momentary, how will I put it, achievement or momentary gain. But there are the good ones, and you'll be able to see. It's like literally saying that you shall know a tree by its fruit. If it produces bad fruit, it's a bad tree. If it produces good fruit, yes, basically it's a good tree. So there'll always be the good and the bad. So it's not 100%. Like, look at me. Am I? Do I meet exactly? Do I meet my mentors for financial gains or etc? No, none of that.
Yeah, but we've seen a lot of cases. Honestly,
Yes.
I've had my own personal experience.
Yes.
You find a young person who is intelligent, and you said, okay, there's prospect in this.
Yes.
Let me pull this close to and see how I can nurture
Yes.
and raise this particular one. Put myself in this person, and then they keep looking at what is in there for me, and they don't want to go through the sacrifice. Involved, and the hard work involved, and the next thing, like, what is there for me? I can't be slaving. I think we seem to have gotten some of this perspective wrong as young people. But let's look at your book that you wrote. You seek to want to say, look, young people, young Nigerian girls, young Nigerian women, we need to get involved in politics. Do you think there's sufficient space for the young girls in the political space?
To be honest, no. The political space as it is not even habitable for young people. When I say young people, like men or women, it's not. But I think there's a line in the book that because it's hard doesn't mean you don't belong there. They say when when there is no seat for you at the table, you grab your own chair and you create your own seat. Like it or not, and I keep on saying that until we focus on our young women and get them from when they are young to when they are like in their older 30s, 40s, so that they have a sustained, how like put it, there is a consistency in their journey that everyone can see. That's what we're trying to do, because if there's that level of consistency, then having the number of women that we need, or some sort of gender parity that we need in governance and politics or in elected offices will not be hard. Because what we see now is that, honestly, especially in 2019 elections, I know a couple of women, very, very good career professionals. The way Nigeria, at least the political system is structured, you have to have had a level of consistency of work within that political sphere to be able to have social and political capital. These women, extremely good, work in CBN, work everywhere, government parastatals, career professionals, excellent at their jobs. All of a sudden they want to head into politics and government office. One is competing for governor, one is competing for this. You're not going to win. Why are you not going to win? Because your area of, how will I put it,
competence
is there. It's not to say that you can't be there and also be in politics at the same time, but you have left one side. And Nigerian politics is not something that you show on the scene today and you get elected tomorrow. No. And that's why we are trying to bring in young girls into that conversation early. So that if you know you want to run, if you know you want to be someone, apart from your normal career that you have as a professional, you would have gained that social political capital, you'll be well known, you would have created value for your community and for yourself. And whichever way you want, whether it's volunteering for someone, whether it's by fundraising, whether it's by being a community organizer, or even if it's by running for office yourself, you would have been able to find a political party where you have been able to build your grassroots movement, give value to that party and your community, because literally it's all about the grassroots and the community and the people that you are here to serve. By the time you do that for a sustained period of time and consistency, and there will definitely be a sufficient amount of hard work that we put into that. When you want to run for office, it's literally like it's a 2 + 2 equals 4.
Where should be the learning ground, the breeding ground for young girls to begin with? I'm looking at schools.
Yes, definitely schools. Definitely.
So how do they go about igniting the interest that when they're out, they want to get into politics?
Interesting. Let me tell you how my own interest was ignited in secondary school. I was in SS1. I had just come in from GS3, and then all of a sudden, our principal came to the assembly ground. I went to Rainbow College, by the way, it's in Ogun State. Came to the assembly ground and told us that this year we're going to be electing our prefects. And everybody was like, really electing our prefects? It's never happened before. And you know, and then I saw my seniors, so the students in SS2 started campaigning, real campaigns with flyers and souvenirs, etc. And then, of course, the SS1, the assistantships positions were left for us. And then I was even writing a speech for a friend and wanted to go for assistant dormitory prefect. Unknowingly, my class teacher had put my name in, thinking that I would be a good candidate, and I was just too shy to step out by myself. And that's how I found myself campaigning for office, for assistant dormitory prefect. And that was how I made speeches, did my manifesto in front of the whole school, did souvenirs, and people actually voted, not just the senior secondary school, but just went down to SS3. And I actually won the election. And from there, that's how I became head girl. So it's by introducing school, how I put it, school is supposed to create people that are ready for society. So it's by introducing elements of the society. This is what you're going to meet when you graduate and leave from here. For example, such a thing could be introduced into secondary schools nationwide. I don't see why it shouldn't. So students are able to understand it's a method of civic education. When you grow up, when you're 18, you're supposed to get your PVC. That's how you vote people. And then if I want to run for office, I understand the basic understanding of what it is to actually run for office in your country, in your community, etc. And of course, civic education in the syllabuses, that should be something that should be taken as a priority. Yeah.
So education should go beyond just the book to being practicalized. So
Definitely.
if you're teaching me civic education,
Yes.
civic education should be how do I practice this
Yes.
within my system to prepare me
Yes.
for when I want to go out of school, and then ignite my interest
Yes, definitely.
to see how I can be involved in politics. All right, I'll take a short break. When I return, we're going to be looking at the percentage, what it is like, and how do we, what you've achieved so far in getting young girls into the political space.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Please don't go away. Still Total Woman on 84 TV Radio.
I can be all I ever dream of, oh yeah. I am a total woman, yeah. I am a total woman, oh. I am a total woman.
All right, welcome back. It's still Total Woman on 84 TV Radio. My name is Moteolori, and my guest is still in the house. Girls just want to run. Nafisat Atiko. You're the executive director of that organization,
Yes,
initiative, and you also have a book on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but let's look at the reports, what we have so far. The national average of women political participation in Nigeria has remained between 6.5 and 6.7% in both elective and appointive position, which is far below what it is like globally. I mean, if we look at states like Rwanda, we look at Tanzania, we look at Uganda, they've done so well within the African region. Okay, so what will you say that the Nigerian political landscape should begin to do differently so that we can have this figure, you know, increased at least to the 35% affirmative action that the UN has even put in place, which Nigeria, of course, is a signatory to?
Yes, they don't seem to like that fact. I think we should go with quotas, to be honest. I think it's the easiest way to solve an immediate problem that cannot wait for culture and religion to catch up. Because when we talk about women's political participation in Nigeria and the things that hinder it, we talk about the violence. We even talk about gender-based violence. We talk about the financial constraints because elections in Nigeria are very expensive. We talk about cultural issues. We talk about religious issues. Fixing all these things is going to take a lot of time that we don't exactly really have on our hands right now. And then the easiest way, which I always recommend whenever I have the chance to talk about it, is quotas and affirmative action, not as a permanent measure, but as a temporary measure that we can use until the environment, how like the society is able to become a more habitable place for women to run for office without any restrictions. I definitely think, because most of these countries you've mentioned, they do have a quota system in place. That's how they're able to get more women into office, because there's a law that says we must have this amount of women every single time we hold an election, and that's how those women enter.
From your experience,
Yes,
if we
ma'am.
begin to create the structure, maybe let's say politically, you ask the major parties, say, okay, you put this particular quota. Do we have the women to occupy this space?
Yes, we do. We do have those women to occupy the space. It's just because, how do I put this? A lot of women seem to, and even me, myself, to be honest, seem to be, sometimes it can be scary, it can be daunting, because you realize that if I enter, it's a dog-eat-dog world. I better be prepared. I better put on my crocodile skin so that when they are shooting all the darts at me, I'm able to stand. There used to be, for women, before they even enter that space, because of the amount of stories that they've heard, there has to be a level of conviction that this is what I want to do, and if I fail, if I succeed, this is where I'm going to stand, this is the hill I'm going to die on. But for political parties, which are seen as, how will I put it, engines or vehicles for positive social development, if they want to be, the issue, the conversation of affirmative action and quotas must start from them. They have all sorts of committees from the local to the national level. Now, most of them do not even recognize the fact that women should be on these committees, or even in the how will I put it, the party leaders. They have a women leader. It's like as if that's where they push all the women to.
Beautified position.
Exactly.
Just stay there, or you become assistant treasurer because you know how to hold money, and women can be trusted with funds.
Exactly. If you have a quota that is ensuring that women are represented at each committee, from the ward level to the national level, those women will want to see more women in office, so they will naturally push. And honestly, it's like an image revamp. When people, it basically rings in your subconscious. When you are used to seeing a woman in office, which is what Kamala Harris has done. Now, young girls can look at a woman VP and like, it's something I can do. When you're used to seeing women in those political party offices, it now becomes sort of a norm of a culture that, women go for these things now. Who told you that you can't go? I think that is the usefulness of having quotas or affirmative action, not just on the national sphere, but also in the political parties. So it's a conversation that needs to start within those parties, and INEC needs to have that conversation with them as well.
I agree with you, but sometimes INEC will also tell you it's not their responsibility to make sure that those parties get those things done. Okay, let's look at your organization.
Yes.
What have you done so far? First of all, I believe that young people do not even have the interest, one, to want to get involved. Then we talk about the area of mentorship, which we identify that either the mentees are not ready, or the mentors are not patient, or there's no structure, defined structure in place to say, okay, this is a school for mentorship, owned by women, run by women, and encouraging. But I know that the lead to some organizations, like the League of Women Voters, the Women Advocacy and Development Initiative, your organization, I think, elect her.
Yes,
she elects.
That's ambassador.
Okay, yes, and such organizations are doing quite a lot to see that women are, young girls are even interested in wanting to come in. So for your organization, what structure are you putting in place? What are you doing, and what's the response like, for young people wanting to even get into the political space?
Okay. So officially, Girls Just Want to Run started from last year, October. So it's just like a year and about 2 months now, if I'm correct. And then we had our first event in Lagos. It was like a closed session event with young women who wanted to learn. So we invited Kenya Dazi. She ran for deputy governor in Imo State. We also invited Aboside George Ogano, we elect her, to come and give a presentation to the young girls. This is what, so it's like Girls Just Want to Run is an incubator for the younger girls, which then go on to say, we want to run, so we're going to go with elect her. So she came in at that point in time to give a presentation, and this is what we do. And we also had someone else from Kowa Party who came to, he ran for Lagos State House of Assembly. So what these people did was that they basically talked to them. this is what politics is about. This is my experience. It's like a basic come to reality. This is what we're doing here. This is your first bite. So just understand what the demography, the system, the ecosystem is like. Just hear the stories and at least get acquainted. Because when you're dealing with people who have no understanding at all, you have to give them with the basics, the stories to get them interested and understand it more. So we started with that. Over the course of the year, we managed to do about 2 virtual online trainings as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were able to partner with Women Will Lead Africa. It's another non-profit based out of the country. We're able to have different women. Jennifer Soberpia, she's the executive director of the Fountain Initiative for Community Development. She basically talked to them about leadership, etc., because you do have to make these girls understand, because they are young, that leadership is something that it is your birthright. Nobody can tell you that you cannot be a leader. So you need to understand that within yourself. And we had different people, Ramaz Abdullahi, who works with the AMAC here in Nigeria, in Abuja, talk about these things. And I'm just going to stop here, recently just launched our ambassadorial program. So we were saying, okay, we want to reach a lot of young women. We don't exactly have 100 people that we can, and resources that we can fly everywhere. So what we did was that we sent out an application to say that we want to pick out university ambassadors, because universities are the hubs, they are the communities where you find these young women that you want to reach. We want to get university ambassadors who can head these hubs, because nobody can talk to another young woman than another young woman herself. Yeah. So we've been able to go through that process and pick a Lagos State ambassador for Unilag, one also University of Nigeria Nsukka, that's in the East Enugu, one also in University of Ibadan. So we have 3 of them that are serving as leaders within their various university communities as well. And we're trying to design a program of mentorship specifically for those ones that we can later expand when we have more manpower, or for them specifically, so that not only are they leading their own university community groups, they're also learning from women who have also led interventions in their own time.
Okay, so that's a very fantastic initiative and way to begin, I would like to say. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
What kind of support have you been able to get, from organizations, women-led organizations, or women who are into politics, or even from any government initiative? What kind of support have you been able to get so far?
Government initiative, no. Maybe because we haven't been able to approach them, but no. But from individuals and other non-profits, to be honest, even coming to speak for free is support in itself. Some of these people have incredibly very tough, tight schedules, but they do make out the time to say that the work you're doing is important, and I'm going to be there to lend my voice to teach these young women, because none of these classes went for anything less than an hour. And that's an hour gone, nothing less than an hour. So, that was the kind of support that we were able to get from people who have also bought the books and given it to other various young women to read, learn, understand, and be aware of the community in itself. So we've had that kind of support, and we're grateful for it.
All right. So my guest, Nafisa Atiku, she's been sharing with us her discoveries, seeing that women, young girls need to really come into the political space. And I seem to agree with a lot of the points that you've raised. Now, women's participation in politics is considered fundamental for gender equality.
Yes, please.
You agree with me, and genuine democracy.
Yes.
Do you really believe that Nigeria can make room for women as we continue to deepen our democracy? Do you think patriarchy is one of our challenge? Do you think the nation, Nigeria as a government, as an entity, will really make room for women to get to that point where we begin to say, I want to go for presidency, and people will actually come out and say we are ready to get a female president?
Well, I believe the Nigerian government will make room for us when we demand that they make room. They will simply not make room for us when we're sitting down somewhere and wishing and hoping that they will make room for us. We need to get up, we need to demand, we need to put pressure, we need to push, become a pressure group on the government. Because look at the gender equality bill. apart from it's been a while now. I think it's still at the Senate. You're saying that that's going to contravene some fundamental human rights. That's the Deputy Senate President, and that is why they cannot pass it. Etc. Etc. We're still playing semantics and dancing around the issue of gender equality. There needs to be sufficient pressure and demand on the government to do what it's supposed to do, because democracy in itself by nature is inclusive. Inclusive in the sense that it must represent every single demographic that exists within the entity. The disabled, the women, the men, the children, whoever, culture, tribe, whatnot, because we're a secular state. So if we say that we're truly a democracy and we are inclusive in nature, then we have to adopt the women. We have to make room for them to explore their leadership potential, have their interests on the table. Classic example: how does a man bring about legislation in a woman's body when he's not a woman? These are things that we need to think about. This is why we need women in the room to think about, because a man can't. It's impossible. He can't think about those things because he's not a woman. He can't understand. Only a woman can understand a woman's issues, interests, perspectives, struggles, within the polity. That's within policy and legislation. So we definitely need women in that space, and we can only get there by demanding and putting pressure for them to
When
do
you
the
talk
right
about demand and putting pressure, we had this issue of EndSARS recently.
Yes.
It's the same structure of
Yes.
wanting to put demand. Do you think the young people are really going it the right way? Taking into cognizance what happened with the EndSARS?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I believe the youths did the right thing? I say yes, because even I was an EndSARS protester. I did not destroy anything. Police people threatened to beat us. In fact, they chased us in Abuja up to the highway, threw tear gas at us, and were shooting at us when we absolutely did nothing but demand for our rights. If there's anyone that we should actually be pointing fingers in this entire scenario, is the government for meeting peace with brutal force. There is no way. Why should you do that? A government that we signed a social contract with to protect the citizens and listen to us when we have our own, issues. We come to you to protest and demand you come out to speak to us, and the next thing you do is to throw tear gas and shoot and chase us onto the highway where a car could have hit people's children, your children. It makes no sense. To be honest, to the best of my knowledge and ability, I believe the EndSARS protesters were quite peaceful until certain hooligans that obviously were not EndSARS protesters took advantage of the system of what was going on to enact violence. I wouldn't say more than that, because I believe that those efforts were intentional on behalf of people that we do not know. But did they do the right thing? For a very long time in this country, I was watching a documentary by Onyeka Onwenu about 30 years ago, and I realized that the same issues she complained about then are the same issues we complain about now. As we were driving here on the car, one young boy came and started wiping the windshield. You know those things that they just come and start spraying water and wiping on the windshield? That thing that he's doing, I was not up to 8 years old when I first noticed a child was doing that thing to my mother's car, and they're still doing it now because of the endemic poverty that we have in this country. If there's one thing that I wish we had done, is that we should have spoken up earlier and put our foot down earlier, so that the things that we saw when we were children will not come and be dealing with them when we're almost 30. That is the only regret that I have.
So, what would you suggest?
Yes.
We should young people should begin to do differently? It's a step towards the right direction.
Yes.
Except that we just had these cases where violence took over.
Yes.
So what do you think we should begin to do? How do we go about it in a more civic way without having to create a room for violence to come in?
Okay, so what do young people need to do? Number one, they need to concentrate on electoral reforms. There's a bill before the Senate, and the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, has promised that he will pass that bill. That bill needs to be passed, because the reason why we keep on having a system that churns out bad people is because the system is rotten. It's not a correct filter to filter out the bad apples from the good apples. We need to constantly reform our electoral system so that we can have a system that brings out the best from our population, not the worst. That's number one. Number two, our young people that are extremely capable and competent need to start going back to their grassroots and registering for in a good political structure, to start running for office, start building from their communities. Community development projects are very important. It starts by showing the people what you can do at this point in time, and that informs why they will vote you. If you have an electoral system in place that will ensure that the best out of the best will come out. And you do your own work by doing community development projects, being involved in your party, etc., then I don't see any reason why we should not have more competent people. Not just a sprinkle, but a whole avalanche of competent people in the Senate and the House of Reps, and of course at the presidency. Because to be honest, if we have a president that is progressive, and we have a Senate and a House of Reps, people that literally don't want to do anything, that president is not going to be able to do anything, because the system is totally whacked. So we need to go, everybody needs to carry their bags and literally go back to where they came from and start to build from there and have a united effort across the nation. So that at each point we can say, I took control of this, I took responsibility for this committee, and I'm able to deliver somebody who is competent in this position. And that's how we begin to change the narrative.
Thank you so much, Nafisa Atiku, for being my guest. You've spoken
for
quite
having
a lot, and I pray and I hope that the people you're working with will grow to have such passion for seeing change, positive change within our structure. And then if we look at our diversity and begin to find ways that unite us, and begin to look at things that we can do to contribute our own quota from the community level into making Nigeria a better place. And I think the young people will begin to change the narrative and begin to make the older ones understand that we have arrived and we have what it is to run. Thank you so much for being my guest. All right, thank you for watching the program today. It's been an explosive one on Total Woman, and especially for the young Nigerian girl. We believe in you and we know you have what it takes, but do you believe in yourself? That's a question I want to leave you with today. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.